A research proposal is a detailed plan for a research project. It is a document that outlines what is planned to be studied, why it is important, and how it's going to be done. Proposals can take various forms, including dissertations proposals, thesis proposals, or research proposals to seek approval from supervisors, academic committees, or funding bodies. In this video, we are going to be looking at how to write a compelling proposal for a dissertation or thesis in the most simple and smart way. And we will also look at practical examples and different relevant tools to make the process hands-on and fun. But before we move ahead, I'd like to make this crucial point. The approach we shared in this video is also applicable to writing research proposal to seek approval from funding bodies. So this video is not your regular tutorial on YouTube. Without further ado, let's get started. Here is the thing. The world of academia is fundamentally a journey of exploration to identify a gap, understand the gap, build capacity to fill the gap, and fill the gap. And research proposals do serve to present a plan for conducting this exploration. A well-crafted research proposal serves several key purposes. One, define the research focus and scope. A proposal defines a clear research question or hypothesis and sets out the aim and objectives of the study to establish the relevance and originality of the proposed research. A research proposal includes a review of existing literature to demonstrate familiarity with the topic and identify gaps in current knowledge to establish the relevance and originality of the proposed research. The third key purpose of a proposal argues for the importance of the research. Research proposals justify the significance of the proposed research, outlining the expected contributions to knowledge, practical implications, or potential benefits to society or a specific field. The fourth purpose, a proposal details the research methods and techniques. Research proposals detail the research methodologies that will be followed to carry out the study, collect data, and analyze it, and also explain why the methods and techniques are suitable for the research and how they will contribute to achieving the research objectives. Fifth purpose, a research proposal demonstrates the feasibility of research considering resources, equipment, time frame, budget, and personnel. And the sixth purpose, a research proposal indicates the timeline for the research, including a schedule of how and when different phases of the project will be completed. And the seventh key purpose, where applicable, proposals discuss ethical considerations related to the research and how these will be addressed. Those are the key purposes of research proposals. In essence, a research proposal does not only serve as a plan for conducting the research, but also convinces all concerned of the what and feasibility of the research project. Now, let's head over to discussing the writing of a research proposal. But before then, while we are starting off this video, we mentioned that proposals are typically used to seek approval either from supervisors, academic committees, or funding bodies. So, to get the approval you seek for your proposal, you have to convince the reader, whoever they might be, to give their approval for the proposal. And if your proposal is not convincing enough to be approved, obviously you don't have a proposal. So the question is, what do you need to convince the reader of? Though I can't speak for all institutions or academic committees, but obviously there are 3 things you need to convince the reader of. One, the significance and purpose of your research. Why is your research important? Is the specific problem or gap in knowledge your research addresses clearly stated? What is your research focus? What will you be covering? What will you not be covering? Here's my point. You need to clearly communicate the specific problem or gap in knowledge your research is addressing and how significant the problem or gap is. And you might also want to take into consideration the vision and research direction of whoever it is that will read your proposal and give their approval. The second point is the feasibility and methodology of the research. Is your research doable considering the constraints you have in terms of constraints such as time, money, other required resources, and your research skills? Can you execute the research? You need to show the reader of your proposal how you will conduct your research within these constraints, and as well demonstrate how your methodologies are suitable to help you do that within the time frame. The third thing that you need to convince your reader of is the expected impact of your research. What is novel about your research? Is your research outcome expected to be unique? You need to constructively demonstrate the potential outcomes and implications of your research, highlighting its unique relevance and potential contributions to the field. If your reader is not convinced by at least these 3 points, your chances of getting your proposal approved are slimmer. So when you are writing your proposal, you will have to pay a lot more attention to demonstrating these 3 criteria. Why is your research important? How is your research doable considering the constraints you have? And what is novel about your research in view of your expected outcomes? Now that we have covered the key purposes of research proposals and what you need to convince the reader of, let's move over to how to write a compelling research proposal for a dissertation or thesis. There are essential components that make up a compelling research proposal. And it is worth mentioning that the requirements vary from institution to institution or academic committee to academic committee. Some institutions or academic committee might want a bit more or a bit less than what we will discuss in this video. But we are going to cover the essential ingredients of a compelling research proposal. So even while you take in what we will cover in this video, it is important that you always check with the available guidelines of your institution, the academic committee concerned, or the resource material they have provided to detail what they expect of you as you prepare your proposal. All right, now let's discuss how to write a compelling research proposal. To do that, we are going to take a look at the essential ingredients of a compelling dissertation or thesis proposal, one after the other. Ingredient number 1, research title. In most cases, this is provisional until the proposal is approved, because the title might change as you work through and finalize your proposal with your supervisor or the academic committee in charge. So don't get caught up trying to be perfect while crafting your title at this moment. But at the same time, you have to give it some thought. So what makes up for a good research title? A good research proposal title should possess the attribute to effectively convey the essence and scope of the proposed study. So let's take a look at an example. Assessment of the impact of climate change on maize production in northeastern Nigeria. Looking at this title, we can say that it clearly communicates attributes that convey the essence and scope of the proposed study with specificity and clarity. The title indicates the focus of the study, which is to investigate how climate change affects maize production in a specific region of Nigeria, northeastern Nigeria. And the investigation will take into consideration both quantitative and qualitative approaches. As I said earlier, always check with your institution's guide so you can be sure you are on the right path, as some institutions might have limits on the number of words in the title and how it should be structured. Now to the second ingredient of a compelling research proposal, introduction. The major goal here is to provide context for your research topic, explaining the problem and its significance. Now the question is, how do you go about writing the introduction chapter of your proposal? First, a vital point you need to keep in mind here is this. Your introduction should focus on what? What are you going to be researching and why? Why is it important that the research is embarked on? Your introduction chapter should engage your reader, provide a clear rationale for your research, and set the stage for the rest of your proposal. Otherwise, your reader might bail, and that might cause you the approval you seek for your proposal. So, when writing the introduction chapter of your research proposal, you need to start by providing compelling background information about your research. Provide a broad view of the research topic and the context you are looking at. Here's what I mean. Introduce the reader to the broad focus, for example, climate change in the case of our earlier title, then give a compelling overview of the context surrounding the broad focus in relation to your research. Then relate it to the focal point, then relate it to the focal topic, the specific focus, maize production, and the importance and relevance of the relationship, that is broad focus and the specific focus in your field. When you are done with the background of the study, then move on to explain why your research is worth investigating. In most research proposals, this is the section of the introduction chapter referred to as the statement of the problem. What you do here is this. You clearly demonstrate the key issue or gap in knowledge that your research seeks to explore. What is the research problem or question that the study aims to address? Explain why the problem is worth investigating. Provide compelling highlights of its significance in the field and potential implications for theory, practice, or policy. The idea here is that while you write the statement of the problem section, your focus should be to set the context for your study and justify its relevance and potential impact. So keep that in mind while you write this section of your proposal. Now, the next thing you want to do is go to the aim and objectives of the study. And it is essential to clearly state your aim and the objectives, the specific goals through which you will achieve the research purpose. The aim should take into account all variables in your research topic, and the objective should be concrete and feasible, outlining the intended outcomes of your study. This session should be clear and specific enough to provide the roadmap for the research, guiding the research methods and analysis towards achieving meaningful results. Let's take an example from our earlier topic. The aim of the research might look like this: to assess the impact of climate change on maize production in northeastern Nigeria. And you might have the following research questions. What are the climate variables that have an impact on maize production in the region? How has climate change affected maize production in northeastern Nigeria? The proposed objectives of the study might look like this: to evaluate climate data for northeastern Nigeria over the past 2 decades, to examine the impact of climate change on maize production in northeastern Nigeria, to examine the adaptive strategies to mitigate the effects of climate change on maize in northeastern Nigeria. Now you can see there is a taut link between research aim, questions, and objectives. However, how research aim and objective are structured vary from institution to institution or academic committee to academic committee. So as a rule, always ensure you check with your institution's guidelines. The next thing you need to cover in the introduction chapter is the significance of the study, which some institution might adopt as the justification of the study. This session is essentially about you describing the potential impact or contribution of your research to the field, justifying how your research intends to fill the gap in existing knowledge. The question here is, how is your research justified? How is it significant? What is the gap in the knowledge that you are going to be filling? You might want to justify that there is a depth of research in the area in your industry, region, or country, and explain why the study is required or why the existing research approach requires modification for your industry, region, or country. Another justification route you might want to take is that the existing research in that area needs an update, that the research information available has been done quite a long time ago, and the context has changed over time. So new research is needed to reassess the validity of the research on the topic because there are variables that have changed or are being introduced over time. Another way you might want to present your argument is that the existing research has methodological limitation. Now, this is a pretty technical route to tread. And if you are to tread this route, be sure you have a pretty solid understanding of research designs. So you have got to be careful with this route. However, you might want to argue that the existing research is lacking in some ways, maybe in terms of approach, qualitative, quantitative, or mixed. Whichever route you choose, just ensure that while writing this section of your introduction, you clearly define how your research will address a specific gap in current knowledge, emphasizing its novelty and the potential impact on the field. Detail the expected outcomes and benefits of your findings, explaining how they will advance understanding, inform policy, or improve practices. Articulate the broader implications of your study, making a compelling case for why the research matters and how it will contribute to the existing body of knowledge. In essence, while writing your introduction chapter, keep in mind that the significance of the study session has to seamlessly connect to your research problem and objectives, and they clearly demonstrate the relevance and necessity of your study in driving forward academic, scientific, or societal progress. The last thing you need to cover in the introduction chapter is scope of the study. Scope is essentially you creating a boundary, letting the reader of your research proposal know what you are going to cover in your research. The scope section is to demonstrate the specific focus of your research, making it clear what you will be focusing on and what you will exclude in the research process. Let's take a look at an example from our earlier title, Assessment of the Impact of Climate Change on Maize Production in Northeastern Nigeria. The scope of the study might look like this. The study will assess climate parameter effects on maize production in northeastern Nigeria, focusing on key regions and the last 2 decades. It will analyze production trends, engaging with local farmers and experts through surveys to gather data on farming practices, crop yields, and adaptation strategies due to climate variability. Here is the thing. When you conduct research, narrowing your focus and going deep are what make your study compelling. So for the scope of your study, narrow your focus and go deep. All right, let's head over to the third ingredient of a compelling research proposal: literature review. In the previous chapter, the introduction chapter, we demonstrated the what and the why of your research. Now, the literature review is about situating your research within the existing body of knowledge and providing a foundation for your research methodology and findings. What you do here is provide a discussion of the synthesis of what the existing research says in relation to your research aim and research objectives. I will not be going into full details of how to write a literature review in this video. We have a comprehensive video on that, for which I will drop the link in the description. But there are a few things to mention. While writing your literature review, it is imperative that you engage in analytical writing and not descriptive writing. A quality literature review is about synthesizing what existing research has said in relation to your research aim, questions, and objectives. So your goal here is to provide a synthesis of literature and not just an account of literature, not just a history of what other authors have said. To help you achieve that and write a quality literature review, there are a series of questions you will have to ask to guide your synthesis of existing literature review. Let me quickly run you through these questions. What is the current state of knowledge on the study? What are the key concepts, theories, or models in the field? What methodologies have been used in previous research? What are the main findings and conclusions of previous studies? What are the strengths and limitations of the existing research? What are the gaps or unresolved questions in the literature? How does this research contribute to or build upon existing knowledge? Are there any conflicting or contradictory findings in the literature? What are the implications of the existing research for practice or policy? What further research is needed in this area? Here is the thing. These questions will help you structure your literature review properly, will help you do a comprehensive and critical analysis of the existing research, and provide you with the basis you need to make your discussion analytical. Before we head over to the next ingredient, let's take a quick look at the difference between descriptive writing and analytical writing. Here is it. What analytical writing stands for and how it's different from descriptive writing. A link to download this will be in the description below this video. Yes, I know the question going through your mind is, do all of these mean I should totally avoid descriptive writing? Now, let me clarify. For most of your literature review, you will require descriptive writing to establish the foundation for your critical and analytical writing. However, while description is necessary, it should be limited with the main focus on analytical content. So a useful guideline while writing your literature review is to review each descriptive point you make and ensure it is followed by a critical conclusion regarding its meaning or impact. So that is it pretty much the literature review component. Let's move on to the next ingredient, methodology. This might also be referred to as materials and method in some quarters. As usual, always check with your institution's guidelines. All right, so essentially, the methodology chapter is about discussing in details how you are going to carry out your research, the data collection methods, sampling techniques, and analytical approaches. And you will also have to justify why you have decided to choose the approaches you will be employing. Just like we suggested while discussing the research provisional title, your methodology and specific approach might change as you work on your research processes. However, in discussing your research methodology, there are essential things you need to consider in order to design a quality methodology for your research. The first thing on that list is your research ideology. Is it theoretical, empirical, or mixed? That is both theoretical and empirical. The second thing you want to consider is your methodological approach. Are you taking a qualitative approach, a quantitative approach, or a mixed approach? Your sampling techniques is also very important. What samples are you using? What number of samples? What sampling techniques will you be using? Another essential thing to consider is your data type. What data will you be collecting? In what form are you going to be collecting the data? Also essential is your data collection method. Are you going to be using interviews or surveys? Are you going to be using focus groups, or are you going to be taking some readings or measurement? And it is also essential that you consider how you are going to analyze the collected data. Are you going to use, let's say, regression analysis or thematic analysis? These are essential choices you have to make in designing your methodology and writing up the chapter. And like I said earlier, you are not going to only discuss the approaches you have chosen, you also need to justify why you have decided to choose them. However, if you are having challenges with your research methodology chapter, it makes sense that you consult with someone who can be of help, someone who knows better than you. That could be your supervisor, an expert in the field, or you can reach out to us at Academia Cafe. Now, here's my point. If you don't really understand what you are doing here, you might be proposing a methodology that is not really achievable, and that might cause you a lot of stress down the line or even affect your proposal's approval. So if you need help here, don't hesitate to ask who can be of help. Now to the final component of research proposal, references. A research proposal is an academic piece of writing, so you need to have a complete reference list at the end of your research proposal. And it is important to say that it is not just a list of references, but a technically correct reference list of all the citations you made in all the chapters we have discussed. Worth mentioning, citation is pretty much required all through all the sections of your research proposal, not just in your literature review. In all the sections, each context, each justification, each theory, and each decision need to be backed up with 1, 2, or 3 references. As usual, ensure that you check with your institution's guidelines and follow their format style, whether APA or Harvard. Just ensure that you confirm the guidelines provided by your institution and use a referencing management software like Zotero or Mendeley to take care of your citations and references. We have a comprehensive tutorial on Zotero. The link to that will be in the description below this video. Those are the essential components of a compelling research proposal. And before we close this video, one more essential ingredient of a compelling research proposal: practicalities. Now, here's why I didn't tag this as a component. Practicalities can vary from institution to institution or academic committee to academic committee. However, it comprises a few important elements to make up ingredient number 6. Essentially, the practicality ingredient is about the visibility of the research proposal, the execution of your research project. Some of the elements that come in here include project plan, a key outline of your research project process, highlighting the various phases of your research process, the things you are going to do during these phases, and the time allotted to them. A tool like Excel is useful here. Another element is the resource plan and budget. This element helps you detail what you need to execute your research project, the budget requirements, and how you are going to get them. Things like laboratory, equipment, rooms for focus groups, or farmland. Another element here is risk management. Since it is a research activity that you are embarking on, you might want to provide a list of the potential risks and how you intend to manage them. Another essential element here is ethical considerations. Institutions always have ethical guidelines, and some research focuses also usually have ethical compliance requirements. So here you need to demonstrate how your research will comply with those guidelines or requirements and how you are going to seek ethical approval if need be. So those are the 6 essential ingredients of how to write a compelling research proposal for your dissertation or thesis. And that is pretty much how to write a compelling dissertation or thesis proposal. On a final note, before you submit your proposal, ensure that you proofread and edit it. You might want to use a proofreading tool like Grammarly, Polybot, or Tracker, or ask someone to do that for you. So thank you so much for watching this video. If you need one assistance or the other on your research workflows, we will be glad to be of help. Reach out to us at Academia Coffee via email at nurture.u@outlook.com. And if you have enjoyed this video, please do give us a thumbs up, leave a comment below, and then subscribe to our YouTube channel for more research workflows related content. Until next time, gracias.